I call to order this meeting of the Appointments and Ordinance Committee via Zoom at 5:34 p.m. This is being recorded by Zoom and the council. If anyone else is doing this, please notify me at this time. Seeing none. Councillor Golub?
Here.
Councillor Bullock?
Here.
Councillor Ricketts? Councillor Lapiensky? I'm here. That gives us our quorum. So I thank you for being here. And Marianne, thank you for making an effort to be here this evening. I appreciate it. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of October 12th?
So moved. Forward. Second.
The motion's been made and accepted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none. There are no public hearings, and that brings us to motions. Catherine, could you do you have the motions in long form there this evening? I had them up on my second screen, and during this confusion, I have now deleted them.
Totally fine. Just I'm scrolling down. Hold on a second. Okay. All right.
If you want to just start with, so the first part of the agenda is the mayoral appointments. We had a couple of councilors email me and asked for these to be separated and not being put as a group. So I carried that through for our meeting. That's why they're separated this evening. Okay.
All right. So the first one is the City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 210, affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the Human Rights Commission, Becky Craig, for a term to expire December 31st, 2024. Short term to maintain staggered terms, majority vote required.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. So is there any discussion on Becky Craig? Anything from my committee? Once again, I thank everyone that steps up, and I have no correspondence regarding this nomination. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. Next one.
The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 210, affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the mayor's task force against domestic violence. Not sure if I'm going to pronounce her name correctly, but Megan Cloutier, for a term to expire December 31st, 2024, police chief designee. Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Also, and I kind of jumped over this before, if anyone is here that is being spoken about, please speak up and when I open the discussion, because sometimes I can't recognize iPhones or if someone comes in from a different venue. So if you're here, that would be great. Oh, there you are. All right. Is there any discussion for Megan? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. Next one.
The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council pursuant to Charter Section 210 affirms the following appointment by the mayor to Planning and Construction Commission. Carol Collins for a term to expire December 31st, 2025. Majority vote required.
Second, sorry, I lost my mute button there.
That's all right. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussions? You know, Carol's a good person to have on this committee and will be a great asset. Is there any discussion? Is Carol here by any chance? No. Any other discussion from any committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. Next one.
The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 210, affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the Public Safety Commission. David Lanoy for a term to expire December 31st, 2025. Majority vote required.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We can open this up for discussion, but David is here this evening, and I've had the pleasure to work with David over the years in many different avenues. And David, welcome to Appointments and Ordinances.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you guys.
Good to see you. Anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to say before we have any discussion? Just sometimes it's easier if you say hi first instead of as a follow-up.
Sure. I don't know if you have the paperwork that I submitted, the resume.
Yep.
Like that.
We do. We get all of that. Sir.
Okay. So I will just very briefly say that I enjoyed my track record of service to the community when I was in the elected and appointed positions in the past. This semester, this fall semester, I entered my 66th semester or 33rd year of teaching criminal justice, the last 21 at Greenfield Community College, where I coordinate the program. I retired in 2014 from the Sheriff's Office and then went back post-retirement to the Hampshire Sheriff's Office. And the two signature things that I work on are criminal justice reform, which is Chapter 69 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, and of course, the police reform, an act relative to justice, equity, and accountability in law enforcement in the Commonwealth. I just want to highlight that I'm also a LEAP speaker. The Law Enforcement Action Partnership is a national organization of public safety practitioners who are dedicated to a social justice model for courts, policing, and corrections. We talk about evidence-based approaches, trauma-informed approaches, and non-punitive harm reduction models. And I think we all know that we're at a very serious crossroads as a culture. And I think we might have lost focus on the fact that police are citizens, but citizens are police. And we need to work hard for public buy-in of our social control systems, because we are in fact a democracy, not a totalitarian state. And so that is really the cause of my life professionally, to bring a professional and equitable standard to the way in which we run social control, criminal justice in all areas. I embrace it daily. I have for the past 35 years. And I care deeply about this community. And so I'm willing to do the work and to provide the service and the time necessary for us to work together collaboratively to move forward in all directions. And in this regard, on the Public Safety Commission. I was privileged to be a member of the Charter Commission and privileged to be part of the group that actually wrote and created this Public Safety Commission. And so we never know where our life is going to go, after certain periods of service. But here I am today, a nominee and before you. So that's the thumbnail sketch of why I'm here, what my background is, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, David. Usually we don't have questions for say, but if you're here and something comes up, I'm going to open the floor in a moment. I just would like to just start off by saying thank you, for your service in the past and willing to step up in a time where Public Safety Commission is being looked at in many different ways. Is it what we want for the future as it was, but right now it's what we have to do. And your resume, I think, speaks for itself. And not only as someone that's been here for a long time, because that doesn't always mean the best, but some of your concerns are the same concerns that we have. So I think, I think it definitely would be an asset. So before I open the floor to my other counselors, is there any discussion from any of the other counselors, any specifics or anything that you would like to add or ask me about? Or
I think it's not specific to the appointment of David Lanoy or the other David, who I'm blanking on his last name.
Mascaritolo, yes.
Yeah.
But go ahead. That's a good opening, Marianne. So.
Yeah. I want to say that I think there's two main things that I've been thinking about these appointments. One is that I think, like Mr. Lanoy said, we are at this crossroads that's really important. I sort of wish what we got was some direction from the mayor on what her thinking is with appointing folks to the commission at this moment in time. And I think there is a huge opportunity to make the commission, remake the commission into something that is really useful for the city of Greenfield and just sort of like does what it's supposed to do per the charter, right? And so I don't have any, I don't have reservations specifically about the people who are being appointed, but the only other piece for me is that I know there was other applicants to this. And I've noticed in my year now on city council, there is a thing that happens where it's sort of like the same people who are repopulating commissions and different appointments. And part of that is because those are the folks who volunteer to do these things, and they're invested in our community, and so they stay invested, and obviously I appreciate that. But I do think there's an undercurrent that I've heard where there's folks who maybe might not have the detailed CV or the long list of qualifications, but they're deeply invested in their community, and they are being turned away from volunteering and being a part of these. So I hope that along with these appointments that we're seeing of folks that have been embedded in our community and volunteering for many years, and with the long CV to go along with it, we'll also see some of those folks who are newer and want to bring sort of new life and new ideas and a new perspective into these commissions and appointments.
Let me just say, from my point of view too, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. There right now, the Public Safety Commission is what it is. Until it is changed, until it is recreated, we have to keep it full and up to its participants in order to have quorums and meetings and as we've spoke at council before. A lot of the things that we thought were under their purview don't seem to have been happening. So new members, I'm excited just to see not reappointments, but some new appointments. And just because, and speaking specifically to Mr. Lanoy, I think his credentials are an asset at this junction. What we see in the future, I'm interested. I was part of that group saying, what do we want to do going forward? But right now, nothing has changed as far as the structure of the committee and how it's structure, I guess is the best word. The structure is what it is. So, but I would agree that I'd like to see people, and I know David has not served on public safety before and really has not been involved in that aspect of city work, for the city. It's been, he was, involved in some of the political side before we were mayoral form of government, and served on other committees, but not in the role except for teaching that. Catherine, did you have anything to add? I know you and I were going to speak and then somehow didn't get a chance to, and then I'll go from there. Is there's something you'd like to share along the line? And it doesn't have to be specific. I've kind of opened it up to the idea of this Public Safety Commission filling.
Sure. Yeah, it's a couple of things. First, I just want to say how much you care about the work. I don't know if we can address you both, talking to you in third person or directly, but I read Mr. Lanoy's entire CV, and it's clear to me how incredibly passionate and dedicated you are to what you do. And it's not normal. It's not the typical case that someone coming for one of these appointments comes to the meeting, speaks on about why it matters to them so much, shares so much about them. So I really am quite impressed by that, and I appreciate the care and dedication to what you do, and that was so evident. And so really want to be clear that this is not about, I do share the same concerns and don't want similar concerns to what Councillor Bullock shared. And so it's really not about, I feel confused about how to proceed, because I really don't have any reason in particular to not vote for these two candidates, in particular, seeing the CV of Mr. Lanoy. I would want to hear from the mayor what her plans are with the Public Safety Commission, and Councilor Bullock said that there were two concerns, and as I think about it out loud, I do have, I think, the same two concerns. One is, like, what is the future of the Public Safety Commission, and what does the mayor plan to do? I do know that there were other applicants, and not even that I would be advocating for them or not for them, but what's the plan is the first question I would like to hear more before we appoint someone or anyone. I don't know if there are other seats that are still open besides these two. And yeah, I am curious, and it is a question that I hold with the other appointments as well now. Hearing Councilor Bullock say this, that I'm pretty new to council, but seeing similar people who've had public service, and that's great on the one hand, and having new people who are clearly passionate about change in this town or city. I'm curious about the mayor's choice to appoint people who have served before, and sometimes that's the choice, and that's the best choice, and other times, what about bringing in new people? And I want to say specifically that the reason I'm bringing that concern right now is because I am aware that there were other applicants to these seats. It's a concern that I might hold for the other positions as well. So I want to be really clear that I want to be fair. It's not just bringing it up for the Public Safety Commission, but I'm curious how these decisions are made. And thanks.
Let me go in a different path for a moment, because I have a tendency to be the council historian, and it just comes from longevity. When appointments are placed, obviously they're mayoral appointments. They're not necessarily community appointments, they're mayoral appointments. So there's always a level of mayors, I'll say in general, putting people they're comfortable with, or in a lot of cases qualified for the position. But in addition, sometimes we take the only people that step forward because we have committees that aren't full, and the mayor, whomever the mayor was. I know in the first administration, when we went to the mayoral forum, we looked for diversity. I remember talking to Mayor Forgy in the day, and people were giving her a hard time. They were saying, like, you know, Chris, why did you put so-and-so on this committee? You know, they didn't even, you know, they didn't agree with you, or they didn't vote for you. And she said, that's not what I want. You know, I want what's good for Greenfield. And I do believe that our mayors have followed suit in saying that, you know, they look for putting people on and, you know, look for qualifications. But at the end of the day, and why I'm going with this, they're mayoral appointments. And so the mayor has the option of appointing anyone that they desire, the mayors. And then we remember, we're basically not, you know, we went back to the word affirm because we're not voting for them and we're not voting against them. We're voting to affirm or reject. And normally rejection comes from a reason that is specific to the candidate. You know what I mean? And that's just the situation we're in. Everyone can vote any way they wish, but normally or historically, or the precedent would be that it's based on the individual, but it's not always been the case. And I don't want to make it sound like it's never been any different, because that's not true. During my hiatus, there were a couple of appointments that came down during Mayor Martin's mayoral role. And I know that during that time, there were people that they were voting it kind of strangely in those days. They were voting to like confirm, or, you know, they weren't using the terminology which was in the charter, which puts our role as affirming, not accepting, or so that's where we are. So, you know, it's really up to us on how we want to go. I believe there needs to be a discussion on the future of public safety, and we have been talking about this for, I don't know, a year and a half. But I caution us only to say that if we were to reject candidates because we're not happy with the structure of the board or the committee, or we're falling down a path that could mean we can't get the city's work done because we don't have people on these committees. So we have to be, it's nice that we can make a statement and make a suggestion, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we have these committees full in the way they're designed at the moment, so we can function, you know, as a municipality. Anything else? I know, you know, this is a, and I'd like to draw this back in. Is there any other comments specifically about Mr. Lanoy? Is there any comments there? And if not, I'd like to bring it back around to that a little bit, because I think we have to, you know, figure out what we're doing with this, and it's up to this committee on your thoughts. Any other discussion?
Do you see that Danny has her hand up?
Oh, I did not. Yes. Are you there, Danny? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was going to speak up in a second. I
Yeah.
just wanted to talk to process and some of the questions.
Perfect.
So what Dan said is true. My observation here in the mayor's office is that the vast majority of the time, we don't have multiple applicants for boards and commissions. You know, usually we're trying to rustle people up, and we are still, you know, I know the mayor does look at the applicants with that eye towards diversity of opinion, diversity generally, things like that on all the boards and commissions. I do believe, I don't think there are any concrete plans at this point. I think they're all still being figured out in terms of how to move forward with the Public Safety Commission in the future. I can ask her if she can add some of those thoughts to her mayor's remarks for next week for the full council meeting, because I'm sure these questions will come up from other councilors as well.
Oh, I
I
would,
do, yeah, and I do want to say that just to keep in mind, presently, I'll give you the makeup because I think Catherine asked this question. It's a 5-member board with 3-year staggered terms. So this is 2 out of the 5. I think what we're going to see is a few more because I do believe there is some churn in there, and we may end up with essentially 5 new people in the end of a few months from now. So that's great. And then keeping in mind that right now, Public Safety Commission oversees both police and fire. So there is that piece as well that sometimes gets forgotten, especially the last few months, that this is also about the fire department. Specifically, I actually was just kind of looking through my notes, and I don't touch this stuff on a daily basis. So I kind of let that go. And I don't, I try not to know things that I don't have to know because otherwise my brain gets full. I don't actually know who you guys both mentioned that there were other applicants. Like I said, that's pretty unusual. I don't know who it is. So it wasn't something that rose to the point where I got awareness of it. And I know that in the past, if we've had multiple seats and people applying, I know we did this, I think last year or the year before for Human Rights Commission. We were waiting to see, I think the mayor was waiting to see if there were more applicants so that she could choose from the pool of folks. So that's just some general observations, kind of piggybacking on what Dan said. Yeah.
are there any questions from my committee to Danny at this point?
No question, but I just think it would be great to hear from the mayor at the council meeting. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I can share because he sent his letter to the entire council, but Jesus Leva, who
he did talk to the mayor. He's come in and talked to me in the last week and a half. I think,
and as I just want to say too, like as Catherine said, it's not just this commission, because I've heard from other folks after we've already done appointments, like, oh, I applied for that as well, but I was, denied that position. And the trend for me is the concerning piece. The trend is that that these are folks who might not have a long CV that's like with like professional education or skill that's specifically related to the topic of the board, but are people who are deeply invested in Greenfield in other ways. And so that's the piece for me where I'm like, I would love to see these opportunities and this leadership extended beyond. And then,
and you guys, I hope you did see that. I think Caitlin sent the email around that. There's no requirement for a resume. There's no requirement that they put something official down, except like they could even just shoot an email. I mean, we do need something in writing so they can share it with you guys, but we are being very clear with people that you don't have to have a CV or resume if they give a call. And I think there is we are communicating, like Jesus is a good example. We're communicating with him all the time, trying to find the right spot for him. I think there probably is something that he'll be able to help with eventually. And I think another recent example was Human Rights Commission. And it was, I'll just say it, like we had like a pile of white guys apply at one point. And so we were waiting to see if we could at least get, some people who aren't white men putting their time forward. I mean, I'll just say, speak clearly. That's what it was recently. But yeah, I'll make sure the mayor knows about those questions.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Letourneau. I don't mean to not use your title when I address you in this format. I apologize. Is there anything else for the Chief of Staff? Anyone on my committee have any questions? All right.
I do have a process question.
I just got to know, I was asking Caitlin when you guys brought this up, who does deal with the boards and commissions. And she said she doesn't believe we had any other actual applications. So I'm going to have to check on that one.
Okay. If you could just follow up with us. And Catherine, before you, I don't want to lose this thought. The other thing, there is no process in the procedures for us to know applications. That was never a part of it. I don't want to think like we're evading or avoiding or it's not happening. It's never happened. We are brought forward the choices, and it's very similar to council. If we make an appointment to a committee, as a counselor we don't necessarily say that 5 of our counselors wanted to do it and this is the one we put forward. So there's no real mechanism in our city government for that. Catherine, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. And so my question is process just as a new counselor. I have no desire to vote no on this, and I don't want to vote no, and I don't plan to vote no. At the same time, I want to hear from the mayor, and I'm wondering about if it's possible to, I don't know, forward this to council with an abstention. With, I don't know how that would work, but this is, and I don't know if this is a question that can be answered, but it's a question I'm asking as a new counselor. Could I abstain on this and have the conversation at the full council?
Sure. And once again, this is only my opinion. Okay, this is not. We're an advisory committee. That's what we do. Anything we vote on is advisory only. I believe that your best bet, Catherine, is to bring your concerns to full council floor and make the point there. Even if you were to abstain from all of the votes on that night, not just this one or next one, all of them, because you want answers. That's your prerogative. That's not necessarily the best thing for us to do as an advisory board. I think we have told the Chief of Staff Letourneau that we'd like to hear from the mayor, and I know she'll bring that forward. I have no doubt. But I think on full council floor, we would have more impact on those specifics than tonight. But I'm not telling you how to vote. That would be just my thought. I plan on voting for this candidate, and then we'll move on to the others. And I just don't want to get into the minutia because we did already vote 3 in today. And now we're down to public safety, and there's a concern. And I know public safety is not more important than any other committee or board. It's just on the top of people's minds and concerning to a lot of people more than ever. So keep that in mind. That would be my only suggestion.
I do see Jesus's email now. It came in on November 18th. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Is there any other discussion about David Lanois in specific before we move on and not there?
Just so you know, David's hand is up right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I appreciate you keeping me on track. David?
Hi. I just want to validate the 2 counselors, Golub, you're my counselor, and Bullock, in terms of your issues, and just elucidate that for a moment if I can. I've been referred to of late as an anomaly for a lifetime of views that dedicate to a social justice outcome and to a realignment of our legal and political and law enforcement systems, because they don't dispense justice. And the mayor knows that because she's talked to me about it. And I can't speak for her, but she knows where I stand. And hearkening back to my service, I want to tell you that getting a public safety commission into the charter was a fight. And it's a fight that I fought because citizen oversight in a racially diverse democracy of the most powerful people in that democracy, the people who make arrests and detain people and make judicial determinations, is a serious business. And so I just want to assure you that I don't apply for everything that comes along. But I also want to validate your comments. My intention is to serve the cause of social justice within a community. To me, social justice is the touchstone of any other productive activity that can take place in a community. And if we don't agree on the rules and then we don't dispense them equitably, including racially, with gender, with age, all of the things that you can read when you read my CV. So I can't apologize for its length because I've been around for a while. But I hear you, and I think that's the beginning of good government. Collaborative marketplace of ideas, listening. And so I just wanted you, Councilors Bullock and Golub, to know that I heard what you had to say about your reservations on the general level. I know they're not directed specifically here at me, but everything that I hear is an evolutionary and educational process for me in my life. And so assuming that, you know, you're going to vote tonight and hopefully a positive way, I'll take that with me. And because follow through is important. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's a complex system. The challenges are overwhelming sometimes when we talk about the gravity and complexity of legal systems and justice in America. A lot of work to do. I believe that we should do what we can in our place in the world. My place at this point in time is my city and town of Greenfield. That's all. Thanks.
David, thank you. All right, I think we'll close discussion unless anyone has anything new to add. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Catherine, did I miss your vote?
No, I voted yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you might have missed
All right.
it. But
Yes, no, it must have been at the same time, so thank you. We will then send a positive unanimous recommendation for David Lanoy. And Catherine, I do ask that you bring up your concerns on the process while we're on council floor, and I'll be there to bring that forward too. And I believe Marianne will too, so I don't think this is going to go unheard. Would you like to read the next one?
Sure. I just need to, oh, it's right there. Okay.
And thank you. Thank you.
Happy to.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
The
mind if I
city,
stick around?
No,
Okay.
please, you can't talk anymore, but you can stay.
I won't talk.
Go ahead, Catherine, I'm sorry.
the city council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council pursuant to Charter Section 210 affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the Public Safety Commission. Again, pronunciation David Mascaritolo for a term to expire December 31st, 2024. Short term to replace Butch Hawkins. Majority vote required.
All right. Do I have a second on this?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. I'll open discussion. David, are you on? I don't see you, but doesn't mean that you're not somewhere else. Okay. Is there anyone that has any specifics to this affirmation? I will bring forward there. I have had some discussion on this candidate specific in that during the period of time in the voting process of our budget for the police, this individual was quite unhappy with the council. And I understand that some councilors felt that it was, some harsh criticism, but and they're concerned with that. They're concerned with the relationship between the council and this member. So I want everyone to be aware of that. I would like to reiterate the fact that obviously we are not going to judge people on their First Amendment right, to get out and speak what they believe is important to them. But it is concerning to some of the council. And I wanted to bring this forward to my committee, that there was concern about this candidate in his working relationship with this council and this government.
Yeah, I'll just share that I heard that actually, I heard more than from fellow counselors. I heard from the public on this that there was feelings that this appointment had about the council and decisions that were made. I'm in the same position where I'm not going to block this appointment at this point in time, but this is somewhere where I think there's time between now and the full council meeting on the 21st. I don't know what will happen with my vote on the 21st in regards to the Public Safety Commission. But I do, I hope that that there's something that can sway me in one direction or another when we get there on the 21st is how I feel. And maybe potentially we can hear from this appointment then if he's present.
If he so chooses. Catherine, anything to add?
I am going to share that my gut says to abstain on this one. I know that my impression is that that's not looked favorably upon, but I don't have everything I said the last time around remained, except for that I was very impressed by everything David Lanois was sharing, and I don't have much to go on here, and so I'm going to abstain and wait for.
I don't worry about abstentions, Catherine, because in fact, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going to abstain, as the chair of A&O, there are concerns from council. There was concerns from specific counselors to me as the chair. And I feel that for me to then say in this situation that it's positive, I mean, I personally don't, I've never had a problem with this candidate, this appointment, but I'm going to abstain from this vote when the moment comes, and that's only so the discussion will be open and at the full council level, because as you know, we for a while, this council was surprising people by all of a sudden the night of the vote, it would go through A&O, it would get to the full floor, and then there would be 10 people of 13 would say no. And we would be so this committee has taken a little different step. And I just ask that if counselors have concerns to bring them to this committee beforehand, so I can do some homework and some research. And this one is a little bit more about relationship than it is about anything else. So that's, but don't ever feel that abstentions are completely frowned upon. Don't look at it like that, because it's your opinion, and we all matter. Now, a no vote or a yes vote, once again, we are we're making a recommendation. That's what we do. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those, are there any abstentions? Aye. All right, I will send a abstained unanimous vote from this committee to full council. And we will say that we abstained for whatever reasons you'd like to the night of discussion. And it wasn't rejected, it wasn't affirmed, it was a abstention from this committee. All right, Catherine, what does that bring us to next?
The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 210, affirms the following reappointment by the mayor to the Human Rights Commission. Wid Perry for a term to expire December 31st, 2025, majority vote required.
Is Wid with us? Don't think so. Any discussion on this candidate? Any discussion in general?
Danny has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Danny.
I put my real hand up this time.
and you weren't on my screen. I can't win. Go ahead.
I mean, I wasn't going to bring this up, but just in light of the previous discussion, I will point out that Wid Perry has been a ardent critic of the mayor's handling of the law, you know, the police department after the lawsuit, including up to and including my turn in the recorder. But because he is such an asset and a dedicated member of the community and just has done a great job on the Human Rights Commission, she's reappointing him. So let's
thank you
that go not said. She didn't ask me to say that. I just thought of it.
That's your opinion, and that's what that's the stuff we need when we're making these recommendations. Anyone else from this committee? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'll just say, like, this is the same thing where I know there's other people who have applied to this committee, and I hope moving forward that there will be a broader look towards selection.
Yes. So we got one new and one old tonight for human rights.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. How many are there open seats on Human Rights Commission?
There will be at least one more, as far as I know.
Okay.
There was several
Yes.
the last time.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my understanding, and so my assumption is if there's all these open seats, people would be appointed.
They won't be appointed all at once. It takes time and process, and like I said, Caitlin handles all of the paperwork for this. She's also the person doing the cleanup for this new website. And she keeps track of, which ones come in and which ones go to the mayor. And we, we're human beings who have to remember to do the, so we try to do a few. I think we try to put forward a handful every month if there's openings, but sometimes not all of them get put forward in time for the 5-day rule as well,
I will return momentarily.
So yeah, well, actually, let me just look real quick. So Human Rights Commission, we've got 2 appointments tonight, and we had new appointments recently. Mr. Verplank was recently appointed, and so was Philippe Simon. Both Philippe is a returning member. Grady is new to boards and commissions generally in Greenfield. And again, I know we did have like one more applicant at least for this one, but there are more openings coming up, and it is, like I said, it is exceedingly rare that we get multiple people for open seats. We might get, this is probably the most I've seen in the 3 years I've been here, is 2 in a row with more than one person for a seat.
And the call to action on some of this would be expected, and it's good that we're seeing that happen. So that's all good. All right, any more on this affirmant candidate? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. Catherine?
So we're shifting to codes now.
Yes, let me just preface this. We have some code work that we're going to try to get through this evening. Some of them are ones that we worked on already and got to the process, and that we found out there had been updates in the laws since we did it, so they have to be relooked at. I hate to use this word, but a lot of this is maintenance. There's not significant change. It's a lot. We do have people for each one. I told the city clerk this evening that I would handle the discussion on the two that were brought forward from the clerk's office, so they didn't have to be here. But we do have Director Warner's with us tonight, and Chief of Staff Letourneau is here tonight, so we can have specifics where needed. So Catherine, if you want to start us off, we'll do as always, we'll open them up and then take a look.
Sure. The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amends the code of the City of Greenfield by amending Chapter 213, Animals, Section 3, License Fees, subsection D, by deleting the word by and replacing with before, and replacing the word after with following as follows. Chapter 213, Animals, D. Should any owner or keeper fail to license a dog before June 1st, the owner or keeper shall pay a late charge of $25 before obtaining said license, excepting 1, a dog brought into the town as provided in MGL C 138. 2, when a state of emergency has been declared by the state of Massachusetts. This late fee shall be applicable after the 45th day following the arrival of such dog, and further amends the index of the code, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Majority vote required.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All right. So let me just give a quick, this is pretty self-explanatory. The fine for not paying there was some confusion. Was it on June 1st, after June 1st? So it's just language to make sure that the late fee is due on June 1st because you're of the terminology. And the other piece was the 45 days. That is when someone brings in a new pet, when they would be fined for not licensing their dog. These are clarifications to code that's already there. It's once again looking to eliminate gray and say these are the specifics. So when someone comes in and says, oh, I thought I had till June 1st to license my dog, and no, you have till the end of May, you're assessed the fine on June 1st. And that's what this clarifies. Any other discussion? Seeing none.
Dan,
oh, go ahead, Catherine.
I just had, do we need to change town to city?
Yes.
That's all.
That usually there's that disclaimer on there that says, and to bring the code. So we're gonna have to amend. You're gonna have to make an amendment.
I'll move to amend to change town to city.
Second.
Second. It's kind of probably a friendly amendment, but Kathy hates those. So, all right, the motion's been made and seconded. I don't think we need any discussion. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye. All right. All those in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none. Moving on, Catherine, to the next one.
Okay, so I just scrolled down and I believe that we're on the page. I'm on page 48. The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amends the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 408, Vehicles and Traffic as attached hereto, and further amends the table of contents and index of the contents of the code, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Majority vote required.
Okay, let me just check one thing.
I'll second.
Is this, I'm sorry, which, Catherine, thank you for seconding that. Which, was this chapter 56C that you just read?
It's order FY 23044 on page 48.
All right, let me look at something.
I'm sorry.
I think you
I'm
skipped.
sorry. I did skip.
All right. So
What? I'm sorry.
let's move back to, I
Okay.
think we should be on the one, the motion, the other motion's on the floor, which is fine, but I'm gonna switch to this one. So I think we're amending the code for chapter 56.
Yep, I am on there. I can do
Okay.
that now.
All right,
The
go ahead.
City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amends the Code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 56, Officers and Employees, Article 7, 12, stipend for school board members and town councilors as attached as Exhibit A hereto, and further amends the table of contents and index of the contents of the code, and further that non-substantive changes the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be compliant with the number format of the Code of the City of Greenfield. Majority vote required.
Can I get a second on this?
Second.
Okay, so let me explain this. What we're trying to accomplish here is when people are going to trainings and seminars and such, by separating these two, counselors can then be able to put in for mileage as a separate entity, because with the stipends that are in there, they're not in today's world to the point where they will cover the cost of a counselor going to an approved training. So if we send out something from MMA, or we send something out and counselors say, oh, I want to go to that, which is always a good thing, this would allow us to pay mileage in addition to the cost of the event and housing and such. So that's all it is. It's the way to help to do that. And we have to stay within our budget anyways. You know, we have a fixed council budget for things. It just comes from a different bucket. So that's what it does. Catherine, go ahead.
I just want to thank Kathy for this. I don't know if I prompted this, but I asked Kathy for if there were funds for me to go to the MMA conference in January, and she said that there were the $500 and there would hopefully be money for the mileage. So I just want to thank her for making this motion and making that process so easy for me.
Yeah, I think this is a good point. You know, there's a gap, there's a change, you know what the conference is going to cost. So, it's still not going to reimburse, full expense. And we want to make sure that if there are counselors that want to attend these things to enhance and learn and bring new systems back, we need to make it a little more easy. So that, and I appreciate her doing that also. Anything for anyone else? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll forward a positive unanimous recommendation. All right, that brings us up to, I believe the one that's on the floor, is that correct? Is that the next one?
Yeah.
And that is vehicles and traffic. Original recommendation was voted at the October 12th, 2022 meeting. Which one of you would like to take this and update us on what's going on with this?
If you would like, I could.
Marlo raised his hand.
All right, Marlo, could you just update us on this, please?
I think that in my notes, I had just a couple of questions from the previous meeting that I needed to check into. I believe the fire station lot needed to be removed
Yes.
currently, because the library obviously is going in that slot. And the only other thing I had was to verify in all the parking lots the rates and hours. We discussed that, the signage being in place, and yes, it is. I verified all of them to match what we're voting on here, or where you may vote on here.
All right. I don't have it in front of me because, like I told you, I did that. Catherine, this was a piece that all of us talked about. If you remember, we all talked about it, and we said to get rid of the lots by name and use the verbiage, the language about signs. And that came from Chief of Staff Letourneau, who said she didn't say specifically that, but she said the lots are kind of fluid. So if we change it to say the fire station lot, and then but it's not the fire station lot, it's now the library lot, and then, you know, the old library lot, you know, so is it the armory lot? We end up, so it's about signage. How did this version, because I don't have it in front of me, how does this version read? Does it still have the specific lots in it, or did they use our language about the signage?
The lots are still there.
So this is not what
you'd have to vote to amend that in this committee.
Yeah, and that's what we did, but it didn't get picked up, and that's why I rejected it from the full council. Right. You know, I said this is not what we talked about. Marianne, do you remember our language? I think you ended up being the one that maybe have read it. This is months ago. This is like September or something.
Yeah. I think what we did was we just said that we were going to use like the basic language of parking lots, and not specifically break them into like Ames Street lot, Chapman and Davis, C and D.
And I think we said something about identified by signage.
Yeah, right? Signage only or something.
Municipal lots identified by signage instead of listing.
Right.
Yes.
And I noticed when I printed out my packet, I got two different copies, but they're identical. So I'm not sure if the second copy should have removed those lots.
Yes.
Because I got two identical copies in the packet.
I think Tammy intended to send the recent one again.
Yes, yeah. That's what I think too, but that's not what we have. So, Mary Ann, do you want to make a motion to amend this with that general language, and then we can do it specifically on the floor?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to amend this to remove specific lot names and just identify by signage.
Municipal lots by signage.
Lots by signage.
Director Chief of Staff Letourneau, do you think that would suffice in your concerns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can back it up with the signage matches the hours and all that. That's what I kind of ran with myself.
Yeah.
So the signage.
If the ordinance is still true with that edit, I'm just working this out in my head. The ordinance is still true with that edit, and it does address the concern that if things change again, it'll still apply, and we won't have to be back here doing this again after it's changed, you know?
Right.
And the municipal signage can change and updated and be added. That's why by saying municipal signage, you know, you could add a lot we don't even know about today, but as long as you put the municipal signage on it, add it to the list at City Hall and hours and rates, then we're in compliance to our own code.
Right.
And I think part of the discussion was that it covers us on the future of the Hope Street lot too. Once the temp station vacates, we don't have to go back into the code.
Yeah.
And exactly. Catherine, anything else on that? Did you have any questions?
Sounds good.
All those in favor of the amendment? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Is there any discussion on the main motion as amended? Marlo, anything else concerning, or Director Letourneau, anything?
I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation to the amended version. Councilor Gold?
So I'm on,
Now we're on,
381.
okay.
Yep.
The city council, upon recommendation of Mayor Weidegartner, an order amending the code of the city of Greenfield. Move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the city of Greenfield, chapter 381, stormwater management, as written in the strike through here attached here too. 3817. Classes of permit applications, fees, additional approvals required. A1. Residential, strike the permit and application fee shall be $25 payable to the town of Greenfield. A2. Non-residential, strike the permit and application fee shall be $100 payable to the town of Greenfield. B. Strike his and replace with their. Add permit and shall be set by the mayor and. C. After excavation, add / trench, strike street opening permit, strike or, and add or on private property. And further amend the code chapter 381 with the following global changes. Change town to city, change superintendent to director, and further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield. Majority vote required.
can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Director Warner.
I think this is much of the same. It lines up with the charter as far as our fees and whatnot. Doesn't lock us in. The mayor, obviously the DPW looks at fees every year on everything and makes recommendations, and the mayor, raises or lowers fees. So this doesn't lock us into the single fees. The other piece of it is to line up with our excavation permits, showing or at least covering us for connecting to our stormwater on private property that ends up in our system. So those are the basic points that I have on that.
Thank you. Director Letourneau, anything on this? I mean, Chief of Staff Letourneau.
You can call me director.
Let's make you a director. Can we vote that later?
I'm also
Okay,
the director of general administration as the chief of staff, so go ahead.
Okay, I like that better, actually.
Yeah, what Marlo said. That's better.
Okay. To my committee, any discussion on this? Any questions for anyone involved?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. The next one, which is trees.
Yep. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Weidegartner, an order amending the code of the City of Greenfield, move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 400, Trees, Attachment 3, list of approved trees for city planning as follows. 400, Town of Greenfield, Appendix C, list of approved trees for town street planting, strike entire page and replace with new attachment 3, Appendix C, list of approved trees for city street planting, attached here too, and further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Majority vote required.
Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Director Warner?
Yes, this is basically just a replacement of a previous list. There was a couple of changes. The tree warden and the tree committee worked together on this. Essentially what happens frequently is the state of Massachusetts sometimes determines that certain trees are invasive or they don't survive in a certain area. There's a lot to it, but basically the tree list, acceptable tree list, is just updated in this change for the city.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion on this? Any questions? It looks pretty straightforward. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. Bringing us to vendors.
The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Weidegartner and in accordance with MGL Chapter 101 and Greenfield Home Rule Charter 6.9, move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield under Part 3 General Legislation by adding Chapter 410 Vendors as attached hereto, and further amends the table of contents and index of contents of the code, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Oh, will I read the entire thing? Is that?
I think you'll
Do I
have to at
keep
the
reading?
council meeting, but I don't know if you have to at the committee. Dan.
Yeah, if we want to refer to these are the fees and such, Catherine, are you talking about?
The entire code is here before it says majority vote required.
Okay, yeah. Just preface it with code as in our packet.
Okay. With code as in our packet, majority vote required.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All right. So who wants to tackle this one?
Would you like some background on where this came from?
Yes, we need a little bit of, there were some concerns. I know that It's new, but it's not really new. It's putting something we've been doing on paper. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So back in 2020, when we were discussing code review, I was talking to department heads. One of the departments that falls under the mayor's office is licensing, and we have a licensing clerk who does all that work. In talking to her, we've been going through, we'll have more you'll see this year coming through with edits and whatnot. It came up that there is, we have Town of Greenfield vendor regulations that were passed by the Board of License Commissioners some years ago. And then we have Mass General Law that covers this, but we don't have an ordinance in Greenfield about vendors. And it felt a little unwieldy, and I'm of the personal opinion that it is always good, and I think other departments like this too, it's always good to have it in an ordinance, so we don't have to worry about where's that policy, where's that regulation. This is code, this is law of the city. So we endeavored to write an ordinance. Lori Kay and I really worked on this using kind of what some changes that happened at the state level as a guide. And then looking at the reality of what was happening in Greenfield. This is all kind of in the memo I wrote today. I was actually really glad to see, we had a constituent, Stephanie, who I think is on the call, write in some questions. Stephanie Duclos wrote in some questions, and it actually helped me get ready for this meeting because I was already going to sit down and formulate some thoughts. The current process for vendors, and by vendors, that's kind of a broad swath of people. This could be everything from somebody who just makes t-shirts or crafts in their house and wants to sell it from time to time, to people who make it their business to sell hot dogs or hamburgers or other food, and everything in between. And we don't have an ordinance about it. So this ordinance, so the current process was that every one of those, big, small, and in between, were required to come before the licensing commission at a regular meeting, submitting the paperwork with the deadline, sitting in front of a public board, telling everybody what they were supposed to do, and then they got the license. The license fee for that was, the pricing is pretty much the same as what you see. It was like $10 for a day and more if there were multiple days, up to a certain amount. What we found was that at different events, we really think about the large events, but there's often small events. This was being followed sporadically. There are events that, we heard about, I live here. So where we know they didn't come at all, probably because they didn't know. And then it just seemed really unfriendly and really intimidating for like your average kind of craft maker. And we have more and more of those coming up. So we wanted to make it make sense for people, but also one of the discussions that Lori and I always have when we're making changes is like, does this protect the health and safety of the constituents? What is the purpose of the ordinance? What is the the purpose of making somebody apply for a license? Is it to get revenue? Is it just to, you know, charge them money? Is it to protect the health and safety? The fees that we charge for these in no way comes even close to covering the cost of the administrative process it takes to do this. I outlined it in the memo that the current process goes through and gets, you know, there's a checklist and it goes around to department heads. They weigh in, public safety weighs in, even on the individual vendors, not just on the big events, every single individual vendor. And so it just, you know, at the $10 rate, it wasn't covering even, you know, anywhere close to the time or Lori's time. And there are all these other things that people have to do already that do protect health and safety. So if you're a food vendor, you already have to get health inspections. And if you're cooking the food, you have to get permits for inspections from the fire department. And if you have propane on site, you have to have another special permit through the fire department. So there's lots of bits there where they're already being protected. If you you know, erect a big structure or a big tent over a certain size, you have to go to the building department and get that building permit as well. And then, you know, there are all these weird little things about by the letter of the regulations, for example, the Franklin County Fair, every single solitary one of those vendors would have to come to us. And I can tell you they have not. But alternatively, Green River Festival, pretty much, well, every single one of their vendors has come through. Sometimes it's playing catch up. It's very, 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 very busy when that happens. And then they still have to get all their inspections. So this ordinance kind of outlines what we think is the right way to go. It mimics Mass General Law under what's called the promoter's license. So if somebody has a promoter's license at the state, they can then go through and kind of be the spokesperson for the individual vendors and make sure that they comply with everything. And then they have to keep a list, and then they have to submit that to Department of Revenue. We are doing the similar thing here. A lot of people don't get promoter license, they're pretty expensive, but individually here, a host of the actual event would be the one to get the license. It would be tiered depending on the size of it. And then they are responsible for giving us. So the city still gets the list of the vendors. If there's any complaints from, you know, in protection of like consumer protection issues, we'll have that to follow up with. They still get vetted as the event gets vetted through public safety. They still have to figure out if they have to police presence, and then they have to pay for that. The vendors have to pay for their own inspections for health and fire. And then it just makes so these individual small makers don't have to come and do all this paperwork for something that didn't feel like it was doing anything. I had a question from Councilor DeSorger early on when this was submitted about the costs, if we're going to be losing revenue. So I pulled together and I pulled out the annual fees from that because those will stay the same. We'd still have people who get an entertainment license for a year. So most of the places you know about, like Hawks and Reed or other, you know, performance venues, they'll get an annual entertainment license. That basically makes them a host from the start. And those are $100 a year. And they have been for a long time. But since 2018 to 2022, it's varied from, did I put 17 on here too? Thought I might have. You know, it's in the $1,400 to $2,100 range. So in a $60 million city budget, it's very, 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 very small. My suspicion is that with the change, it'll make it easier to comply, and we may actually see that stay the same and or possibly go up a little bit, but it is really, really small potatoes compared to some of the other sources of revenue. I put in a little quote in my memo from Lori Kay, and she was like, vendor applications take a really long time. There's a lot of back and forth. They're usually calling or playing phone tag. They're not a regular business owner. They don't know the process. And before the application's even ready to get vetted, there's a lot of work there. So some of the questions that were given to me by our constituent Stephanie were thinking about the inspections. All the individuals putting on these events and or the vendor themselves have to pay for those themselves. We don't cover that cost. And so there's already a significant output there. And same thing with the police presence. If there's any fire coverage needed, they have to pay for all of that. So we're not losing money in that way. And this doesn't negate any of that. The health department's charges are kind of hard to figure out. It depends on size, whether they have seating, you know, how much food they're making, and it's anywhere from $50 to $200. And then they also have to pay for re-inspections if they don't pass the first time. And I'm just trying to look through her questions and answers. All state and federal and local laws apply to events, even if they're on private property. And yeah, I did have 2017 in here, $1,600. Sorry, I like literally printed this out. So I mean, I can just answer questions if people have questions about this. One thing I will say is that I am open to, if people are feeling uncomfortable, I am open to, there was a piece of this that I was open to changing, and that is, you know, the fees. I would be open to doing something like pulling the list of fees out if we wanted to, so that if we wanted to revisit it, it wouldn't require a code change. I don't have any idea how exactly we would word it if we did that, but you know, that way it could be reviewed each year, and if we needed to raise prices, we would. I will say that we haven't raised fees for the last many years because, in part, you know, the last few years, people are, you know, businesses and people are still recovering from COVID. We haven't raised the prices on things like, in the same department, liquor licenses, which is a significant amount of money. We haven't raised our prices on those for a long time because we know restaurants and bars and even liquor stores were struggling for a while. And we instituted a payment plan starting in 2020. We did give a discount that year, and we also instituted a payment plan. We've kept the payment plan in place, and I can tell you half of our liquor license vendors have asked for the payment plan this year. So I would just, you know, caution us into look, you know, thinking these are small fees, should we raise them at this time? I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea. Yeah, so let me know if you have questions. I'll stop talking.
Thank you for that explanation. Director Warner, let me ask you a question. We just talked about some fees, and in the code, they say fees are reviewed. Isn't that how you said that we get away with being able to not set a specific fee like you just talked about with water?
Yeah, you know, the other piece of it is we set internal code in the internal policy in the DPW from the code. So we have to match the code. So we can't increase a fee, even though we know we really need to. It could be regulatory, it could be anything. So that's kind of why on all my code changes, we left it open, because we review them yearly and they were approved by the mayor through the charter, I believe. I'm totally on board with Danny's thinking on this. I mean, you are kind of locked if you keep the fees in there, because you can't, like Board of Health can't change their policy if it doesn't line up with the code, I guess is what I'm saying.
Didn't you have fees in the last one we did? There was something about $25 or something.
And that was removed. It was stricken, I believe.
So we took the fees out and said fees will be reviewed.
They'll be set by the mayor annually or something to that effect. I believe it said. I can pull it back up. But
no, I'm just wondering, Chief of Staff Letourneau, would that work in this same situation to say that the guideline on fees will be reviewed on an annual basis?
Yeah, it does already say, unless otherwise set by the Board of License Commissioners, the following is a fee schedule, but we could add a sentence or take that out. Yeah.
And could it say, could we leave them there and it says leave the fees. Don't, I wouldn't say remove them all because it gives us a baseline. But in that sentence that you were just saying, could we add a sentence that says, fees on an annual basis? You know what I mean?
Fees will be reviewed annually or on an annual basis and are subject to change after review, or whatever Marlo used for words.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do in-house, and we recommend to the mayor. It's not in the codes. Basically, it says permit fees shall be set by the mayor and are non-refundable. So that's an internal policy of mine where we review and go back, previous years and so
I don't want to put non-refundable in there. We actually do refund vendors. We refunded the year we had $0. We actually had 2, and then we refunded them.
Yeah, and I agree, Chief of Staff Letourneau, it's different in this case than it would be in ours.
Yeah.
As far as permitting.
So let me just play devil's advocate here, Dan. Adding that sentence, but leaving the actual dollar amount fees legally, does that cover us? And then we could just update it at the 5-year code review. Or do we have to remove the dollar?
Or could we put something, fees are subject to change with annual review? And then that's it, it leaves the door open.
Right. And honestly, if it's then, and then we just do a small change at council level, that seems okay, from time to time.
Okay, I'll open this to committee. Thoughts on this, Catherine, Marianne, what are you thinking?
I can make the motion to, I'd be happy to do that. The motion would be to add the words, fees will be subject to change upon annual review.
Is what, I'm not that I had it correct, but what did I just say?
There were different iterations. One was fees will be reviewed on an annual basis and subject to change upon review.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I get a second on that for discussion?
Yep, I'll second that.
All right. Marianne, sorry. Any thoughts on this?
No, that sounds good. And I was just catching up on the email that we had from Stephanie. I hadn't read that earlier today. So
I think Chief of Staff, Chief of Staff. Whoa, Chief of Staff Letourneau did a good job in doing that, and I'm glad Stephanie sent it to us also because it addressed some of the things like who's responsible for collecting the funds. I think Director Letourneau also said something, that was good to say. I think if we make the process easier. If you have 10 vendors that are there for a dog show, I'm just saying, and they're set up selling their wares, and all they have to do is tell the operator, the people, and it's a $10 fee. I think we're going to see $50, where in the past, if you made, the guy that sells dog collars that's coming from, Indiana and does the AKC circuit is not going to go sit before our licensing board and try to get his, 1-day license. So I think we could actually see an increase. And I think that'll be a little bit by enforcement, by just saying to the fairgrounds and to street fairs, you are the coordinator, vendor list, and then collection of monies. I think, I would say that, you would do something if it wasn't for a nonprofit. I would say that, you look at it and say, we have 10 vendors, here's $100. And then they go in and assess it as part of their course.
So with this, if there's a vendor host license, that's the only fee that's paid. But what you're saying is true, Dan, is that if we can educate, it's such a hard process that people who work here don't understand the process. It's just so complicated.
Yeah.
At least we can point to this ordinance and say to the various places that generally have such events, here's how it works. So when people come in, these theoretical people from out of state, they don't have to research what they have to do business here in Greenfield. So I do think we'll get more compliance for sure.
When I was on council, and I think with you, didn't we have something like a common vicular license or something?
We still have that. Yep.
Okay.
That's another one that the licensing commission, that's the restaurant license.
Okay, is that what it is? I didn't know if that was part of this, and I just remember that was a.
So yeah, you already have, you have a common vittler's license, you have liquor licenses, you have one-day liquor licenses, you have all those other things that really have to be done. And then we have things like ice cream trucks. I put this in the memo. If you haven't read the memo, read it. It's like, it's some of my best work. There's a Mass General law very specific to ice cream trucks. More requirements for them because they're could drive around neighborhoods. There's background checks, things like that. So that already applies. There's all these other checks and balances for safety that already apply. And so this felt like we can still get a handle on what's going on in town. We can know what's going on in town. These events and vendor shows will have to come before us, but we're not making it so nutty that nobody wants to do it or nobody understands how to do it.
I think that's, any other discussion from my committee on the amendment? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Now we'll go back to the main motion as amended. Is there any other discussion on this motion? And remember, once again, it'll come up on the council floor. So if anybody has any specifics, if we see something from our constituent that flags something and we want to do a little homework, we have the opportunity to address it between now and full council if there was something that came up or we don't think we addressed. And even if after this meeting, if Stephanie in specific wanted to reach out and say, thanks for that, update, but I still have a question about this, I would open that for her to send and then I can look into it in specific. Is there any other discussion on the full motion?
I would just echo all of that and say thank you to Stephanie for raising those questions and also to you, Danny, for responding. I read both of them and processed them, and I'm curious if Stephanie has anything else, but I feel good about voting.
Yeah, and we have time to go down that path, and that's why I always said that our advisory situation works in our favor the majority of the time, because it's happened to me many times. I vote differently from this meeting to the next because of information that you find. If you know how you're going to vote every time you walk into a meeting, it's not a good thing. So this is, discussion opens the door and you say, oh yeah, I didn't realize that. Or one of the directors comes and talks about it, and then you realize, that there's a better understanding. So we have the opportunity. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a unanimous recommendation as amended. That brings us to discussion. Is there anyone? I have nothing to discuss under discussion tonight. I think we're, we've moved right along. We have rules of procedure, city council obtaining a legal review and or opinion continued. Is there anything here that couldn't wait till January, or any discussion? Mary Ann, anything on those?
I'm good.
Okay. Catherine, anything?
Good.
All right. Anything under new business? I know this is going to come up on council floor, but I just want to recognize that we lost Mark Maloney this week, who served with me as one of my chairs when I was president, and I served with him, and he was just the most interesting person, one of them that I ever worked with. He was dedicated and kind of gruff and soft-spoken and sweet all at the same time. And he will be missed by me greatly. He's one of those people that I didn't talk to often, but if I needed him, he was a phone call away. So, he served in every capacity on this council. So, as far as the chair of A&O and the former president, I just want to recognize that Mark, it was a huge asset. I mean, he's been on the ZBA my entire time in Greenfield, I think. And I had him on, he was the council's person on the tech school, Franklin County Tech School, was and he just did all of these things. And those people are so hard to find, and he'll be missed greatly by me and this committee. Anything else under new business or old business? Our next meeting is scheduled for January 11th, 23 at 5:30 via Zoom if we don't change anything in the meantime. Anything else? Thank you, Director Warner. Thank you, Chief of Staff Letourneau, for being here tonight and going through all of these. And I thank you. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
All right.
What does that sound like?
Adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion, and I'm sure it's seconded. I have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:09 p.m. Thank you. I will see the counselors next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice
all.
tree, Dan. Good
All
tree.
right.
Good night.
Yeah, also, I think that Chiefala has like a very Dr. Seuss ring to it.
Bring
so
it.
We should stick with it.
Chiefala.
Chiefala.
You know, there were so many things I've called her in this meeting and over the years, but I think Chiefala is one of my best.
Yeah, that's
writing
you
it
did
down.
good. You did good.
I think it was really nice. It was someone else's turn. I've been called counselor numerous times.
So one of my employees serves as one of Danny's best friends. I think she is going to love Chiefala.
He does serve as one of my best friends.
Yes.
Yeah, for many years now.
Many years. She has kept that
Unwavering.
role.
We can't get another appointment to that seat. So
She has kept that role for God as long as I've known you.
Well, we got
all
another.
right. Good night.
We got
So
another.
Chief,
we have a
Chief
charter change coming.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, great.
Yes.
yeah.
yes.
All right.
for
Well,
Chief.
stay tuned for the A&O for future dorky code changes, and I'm so excited about tech.
Yes, and I will make sure that your appointment to your friendship stays in place and calls you Chiefala from here on.
Chiefala.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
May
Thanks.